What's up you guys, it's Bart here. Now for the majority of my life so far, I haven't been very good with my money. What I'd earn, I'd spend. And since 7 out of 10 people in the UK live paycheck to paycheck, my old spending habits aren't exactly uncommon. The first reasonably large amounts of money I earned as a 15-year-old, I decided to chuck into expensive computers, brand new monitors, keyboards, mice. Now some might argue that that's much better than spending money on expensive designer clothes, but yeah, well, I did that too. It got to the point where, towards the end of last year, I was booked in at a car dealership to discuss some finance deals on a brand new car. Luckily, my mum was extremely against it and managed to talk me out of it, and instead I went and bought a £900 tin can, and to be honest, it's been one of the best decisions I've made to this day. Recently I've completely changed my views towards money and personal finance in general, so I thought I'd just go over a couple of basic concepts within personal finance that might be useful to some other people too. And when I say basic, I mean basic. These are things I'd literally explain to anyone that really doesn't have any sort of interest into personal finance whatsoever. But just before we get into that, make sure to hit the like button to help me trigger the YouTube algorithm so that we can pass this video on to as many people as we can and hopefully grow this channel together. And whilst you're down there, you might as well hit that red button and bell to stay involved with this type of content. There's a free share worth up to £200 down there as well if you like some free money, just saying. Anyway, if you were an alien and I had to teach you the very basics of personal finance, this is the first thing I'd say. Spend less money than you make, also known as save. Now in practice this is a lot harder than it sounds, and there are many reasons surrounding this. The main one being lifestyle inflation, but we'll leave that for another video. The main reason as to why people are so bad with money is because it's often viewed as a very touchy subject. It's not taught in schools, people feel judged talking about it, and even in some cases, people are offended by the whole concept of money in general. Now to put it simply, spending less than you earn can be made a lot easier with a very basic budget. We won't go into too much detail about budgets, so I'd rather dedicate a whole video to it, but the general rule of thumb is to follow the 50-30-20 rule, and that way you're already doing better than most people and actually putting some money away. So the next key thing to understand is avoiding high interest debt, especially on liabilities. Now don't get me wrong, not all types of debt are bad, and in fact if you'd like me to do a video on good types of debt, then let me know in the comment section down below. But there are, however, some types of debt that we should try and avoid at all costs. Now we could sit here for hours and talk about the sort of debt that you shouldn't have, but if I had to pick two, it would definitely be credit card debt that you can't afford to pay back straight away, and car finance deals. The high interest rates involved will eat you alive and almost guarantee that you're overpaying for something that loses value over time anyway. The average new car will lose 60% of its value within the first 3 years of it being purchased, which is typically how long a finance agreement on a car lasts. To put that into perspective, a car finance deal with a 12% APR, which is pretty standard in the UK, on a car that's worth £15,000 will essentially mean that over the 3 years you'll pay nearly £18,000 for that car, and by the time you finish paying it off, it'll be worth around £6,000. Now that's not exactly a good deal if you ask me. Now the third and final thing I'd like to touch on is making sacrifices and educating yourself. Again, easier said than done, but there are questions that you could start asking yourself, such as, do I really need to buy coffee from Starbucks 5 times this week? The simple answer is no, but in times where instant gratification is an absolute must for the average person, it becomes quite hard to understand why we shouldn't spend so much money on such overvalued things. Unfortunately, we live in a generation of people where a lot of the time people feel sorry for themselves, and because of that they make daily impulsive decisions that negatively impact their finances. They make impulsive purchases and that way they become happier or feel happier because they've been able to spend an extra £4 on an iced coffee or an extra £250 on a designer jacket because it makes them happy. And I say happy in inverted commas because it's all to do with the psychology of how these things are portrayed. Now we won't get into the behavioural economics behind this, but a lot of the time big brands manipulate people into feeling as if they deserve or need something. It's very common for big brands to make people feel as if they deserve something because they've worked extremely hard for it or because it will make them happy. Now unfortunately this isn't actually the case, and all it is a big psychological play by these big brands in order to get sales. I hate to break it to you. And that's why I feel it's very important to educate yourself on money so that you can be in control of your life and your personal finances. So next time you go to buy that £4 iced coffee from Starbucks, stop and think about whether it's actually necessary and whether it's going to make a huge difference in your life in the long run, and instead maybe choose to use that money to educate yourself and buy something like a book about personal finance, like the 4-Hour Work Week. I mean, I couldn't recommend this enough. The way in which money's presented and how it can work for you, it just really does open your eyes to how money works. And you know, for the price of 2 iced coffees from Starbucks, you could genuinely change your life by reading one of these books. So I couldn't recommend it enough. And yeah, it just goes back to making those sacrifices and making those informed decisions. Don't be impulsive, and instead stop yourself from making such silly decisions. You can make an iced coffee at home for around 15 pence. I mean, Graham Stephan's a great advocate of this. He's got a podcast that's named after his iced coffee, the 20-cent, the iced coffee podcast, the happy hour, whatever it's called. I don't know what it's called, but yeah, he's a great advocate of, oh God, my hair. He's a great advocate of not spending your money on such silly and overvalued things, and instead investing that money into yourself and into things like this, things like these books that literally the price of 1 or 2, maybe 3 of those iced coffees that can really make a difference in your life and can really teach you about your money and your finances, so that maybe in the future, when you are actually financially sustainable and financially free, so you don't have to work anymore, then maybe you can drink as many iced coffees as you like. Although I personally wouldn't recommend that. Now, that's not to say we shouldn't have our iced coffees from Starbucks, we shouldn't reward ourselves, and we shouldn't be happy with these small things, because I do agree they do make a difference sometimes. But there are people that buy these things, go out for lunch, go out for dinner, go out for breakfast, go out for coffee, things like this every single day, and it really does show, because 7 out of 10 people in the UK still live paycheck to paycheck. There are people that make £50,000 salaries that still live paycheck to paycheck, and it's because of these small impulsive decisions that could easily be halved or just completely cut out to invest your money first, that could really make a difference in the way people use their money and the way people view money in this country. So those are my 3 little concepts that should start giving you a basic understanding of personal finance and hopefully inspire you to start making some better decisions. If you haven't been doing so already, by the way, because I'm sure there are people here that do in fact make good financial decisions. Shout out to you guys. Now, by no means am I an expert, and in fact I'd probably consider myself a beginner, but those are just 3 things I'd pass on to absolutely anyone that wants to learn and improve their knowledge of personal finance. So with that being said, as always, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that like button and subscribe, stay involved with this type of content, and if you have any other personal finance tips that you feel that would be interesting or valuable to other people, then I'd love to hear them down below in the comments section, as there are definitely more than 3 tips for basic personal finance understanding. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.